Right, kia ora everybody. Welcome along to the League and Order podcast at the final finish of round 4. Thank you to Blake Ayshford, available this week. Aysh, you well?
I'm well, mate. I'm well. Good to be back. Missed you last week.
We missed you too. Kemp, do you agree?
Mate, not at all. He's obviously doing TV. He's had a shave. He's had a hair.
Yeah.
Is that moisturiser I can see, mate, glistening?
Yeah, for the face, not for anything else.
And Lavina,
Coming up all right, mate.
Another successful weekend for your Parramatta Eels, Lavina. So I had no doubt you'd turn back up.
Top of the table. Happy with that one. I'll take a win anywhere with Parramatta, but it's only 4 weeks in, although it feels like it's just started. It's going quickly, isn't it? 4 weeks.
No, as a Warriors fan, it felt like we went back in time a little after that game. So let's start off there. We had a plenty of promise heading into the game against the Roosters, and it turned out that we should not have been so positive, and then with a massive score run up on us. And shut up, Kemp. Kemp, you know what the most annoying thing about Kemp was? He didn't give me any quality feedback on our messenger. All he said was, "Go and have a look in the mirror." Have we got the hooker to win it? Was one quote, and then go and have a look in the mirror and come back and talk to me. I was like, what does that even mean? What does that mean? I'm already hurting from a loss. What does that mean? So Kemp, let's start with you. What did you learn? What did you see? What did you think about that? The Roosters?
I don't know if I've learned anything. I can guarantee you haven't got the hooker to win you a final. I guess every fullback that's looking at coming on the line one on one in a spot, you got a big spot next to his name in the away team's video analysis every week. You know, get at the number 9 as much as you can. Go to his outside shoulder and hold him off. But look, the game was a lot quicker with Sydney City. They everything was up tempo, and you get that with Tedesco at the back, and they just went down the middle of the ruck. They were just too quick off the ground in the end, too quick around the ruck. And the reason they got them out wide was they just kept pulling them in closer and closer every time they were splitting them down the middle and going wide. And the blokes like Manu and the Morris brothers. Geez, how good are they, mate?
How bloody good are the Morris brothers?
How good are they? How good are they going? Still for their age. So disappointing. A big loss, Adam Fanua-Blake. I think he maybe carried that injury in from the week before. I'm not too sure. Look, there were glimpses there. I thought that they were in the game in the first half, but they were in the game. They weren't winning the game. And I think what Sydney City did was they just buried him as time went on. Some poor one-on-one missed tackles, that was probably what let them down the most. I think they'll be doing a bit of tackling practice this week. Bring back the sandpit.
Lavina, what did you see in it? How did you feel afterward as well? I like to feel like you're my soulmate when it comes to every missed tackle. We both feel it together.
It was pain. It was painful, some of it. It was painful that the Warriors were held scoreless in the second half. That always frustrates me as a rugby league fan when you're backing a side that can't score a point in the second half. You're asking Tony what he learned. I get you're concerned about Egan making those tackles, but it was Tedesco running at him, who's the best playmaker and runner in the game at the moment. So not looking for excuses for him, but I don't think he lost the game for them. Brett Morris, someone told me the other day, he hasn't lost a game against the Warriors in 15 years. 15 years. How about that? Every time he plays the Warriors. The guy's 34 years of age, and the turning point in that game for me was when he ran from dummy half and he had 3 Warriors players and he could still score a try. A 34-year-old winger can still score a try. That's where the area of concern is for the Warriors. So it was really sad losing Fanua-Blake. I know that was only in the 13th minute, but, you know, the Roosters had an 18-year-old kid that weighs 78 kilograms that was running the show by the name of Sam Walker. 78 kilograms is that kid, and he shone in that side. He controlled the game. And even though it was close in the first half, the fact the Warriors couldn't score a point and the second half was heart-wrenching for me as a Warriors fan.
I find it only fitting then to go to a Warrior who's obviously been pumped over and over by the Morris boys and Blake Ayshford. You started the fucking record, mate. Now answer for it.
Oh, mate, it's happened at every club. I've been destroyed by them. No, they are good, mate. But my learning was how good are the Roosters recruiting a halfback who's 17 who can come in, run a show, and, you know, whoever thought that the Roosters would dip because of injuries, and then the 17-year-old comes along and doesn't look out of place in a first grade jersey at all. It just shows, I think, how far the Warriors are away from being a top 4 side, maybe a top 6 side. I still believe that they're going to make the top 8. I think they've got enough strike there. If they don't get injured, like Kemp said, and Fanua Blake will be a big loss if he is out. But if they stay fit, I still think the Warriors make the 8. I think they're good enough too. But it just shows how far they have to go to even get in that conversation to win the comp. Because the Roosters are missing all these players. They do have international players over the park. But to have a 17-year-old come in and destroy you like that, and the line speed, I mean, knowing rugby league, the difference and the time that the Roosters had to play rugby league, to pass to each other, to do everything compared to when the Warriors were trying to do it, they were making no meters compared to the Roosters. A bit of attitude things there, but yeah, I still think there's a long way to go.
What is that? What usually dictates that time playing the ball, Kempy? From your experience, when you look at a team like the Roosters, who are down some strike force, but yet can still, I guess, have that time and make it look so much easier than, say, the Warriors, who weren't down as many players as the Roosters. What is that? And don't tell me it's a hooker and that's it.
Oh, it's the hooker. No, I take it easy on the hooker. I've just pointed out the obvious. Everyone knows it by now. I don't think there's a problem playing the ball fast in this competition. I think the rules are set up for a quick play the ball, but what you got to do is, especially against the Sydney City side, is you got to win the ruck. And if you don't win the ruck and they get you by a split second on every play the ball, the players come into their own. Sam Walker on debuts playing on the front foot.
Nope.
Oopsie.
That
was a very poignant moment there.
That's a very poignant moment.
Well, that's what, I'll leave on the back of that. I mean, everyone's on Fusatua, Kim Mamalo and Roger on the weekend about not running hard, not running through the line. But it's hard when, if they get a quick play the ball, they're going to be unstoppable. They're the best 3 running the ball back. But like I said, the Roosters were going 3s and 4s because they knew what was coming. Even when the boys were playing out the back and showing some shape, the Roosters were onto it. And you see the difference. The Warriors didn't have that. So the Roosters just got a quick play the ball and then just kept playing and got to play off the back. And then that's when you see players like Tedesco run through, run through everyone.
The thing that Tony was sort of alluding to there as well is that, they get a split second on you in the play of the ball, and then the next one's a split second again. You start adding those seconds up, and you're backpedaling real quick, right? And the Roosters just seem to add over and over again those little wee split seconds. And by the end of the game, like, I was shattered just watching it. I was like, man, we've just been run ragged. And that is, every tiny little second, every tiny little inch that they talk about in all the big movies, that's all it takes. Once you add all those inches up, when you add all those seconds up and you're backpedaling, the score just gets on you. You get tired, and the rest.
And also, because
Tony's bringing back in. Do I let him in?
Defensively, missing all those tackles doesn't help either. You know what I mean? Actually, so exhausted, defense after defense. And then if you don't have those players doing the quick play the ball, which some teams, and that, Blake, they're conditioned to do that. Some coaches just come out and say, all I want you to do is get up and play the ball as quickly as possible, and hopefully the referee's on your side to allow you to do that so you can push that attacking side back. And there's some sides that just train for that over and over again. So I don't know if that's something Nathan Brown might focus on, or will he just focus on the tackling this week, because it was the missed tackles that cost them the game in the end against the Roosters.
Keepy, nice to have you back there. We kind of answered your question for you. You gave us a little inch and we took a mile, and we kind of filled in the gaps where we thought you would say. We kind of buried the lead, though. Obviously, the Warriors losing their game, and we kind of mentioned the fact that Parramatta's unbeaten. But the real lead is there's a trans-Tasman bubble that's opened up, and there's a whole lot of fans who are hooting and hollering thinking we might have a home game next week. But well, that's kind of the feel you get. Hey, all of a sudden we can travel in and out of Australia. Aysh, you kind of had a bit of foresight when you were with the camp as to how they were going, and we talked to Cameron George at in one of our podcasts we did earlier in the season, and he was saying how they had a plan How did that plan stack up again? There was a certain amount of time that they had to be in Australia, and if the bubble opened up, and then they would be encouraged to come back and forth. But the bubble's open quite late, hasn't it?
Well, last year there was so much uncertainty, and obviously no one knew what was going on with COVID. There was a lot of talk about the bubble was opening last year around this time, and it just never did. So it sort of wrecked the players' minds a bit, especially with no family. So what they did this year is they put a plan in place, and I think it's maybe 1 or 2 months. So they've got up until maybe they had up until March or maybe the start of April to go home. And then if that wasn't there, then their next time they were going to go home was June or July, possibly. So they set it in months so that the players know how long they're there for. Not, oh, are we going home this week? Are we not? They just know how long they're there for and get on with the job.
Well, that seems to make sense, even though we'd all like them to be back. So long as the players don't have to go through that turmoil of having to think, oh, we might be coming home or we might not. Here's the dates. This is where this is our plan going forward into the season. But would it make a massive difference, do you think, Lavina, if the boys were allowed to come back in that first home game back, if it was, say, in a couple of weeks or more likely a couple of months?
I'd love the Warriors to come back because I'm missing out on some work at the moment. It'd be kind of cool to head along and interview players after. That'd be handy. I actually said at the start of the year, I think it might be in the Warriors' favour, how there is not that jumping ship and not knowing what's happening. The fact that they were based overseas in Australia from the beginning, they didn't have that pressure from the home crowd, which I know helps, but sometimes it can be quite harsh on the Warriors. And I thought initially it would be okay and in their favour. What they do need to know is a date and a time. So if it's, I've heard from Sky TV peeps that it definitely won't be before the end of June, regardless of what happens with the bubble or any extra cases, etc. So don't expect it to be before June. And some of the producers I know are saying it might not be for the rest of the year. I guess they need consistency. So they need to know, are they based there for the whole year? And their whānau know that as well, which makes it easier to focus on the job at hand rather than guessing, are we back in a couple of weeks? Are we back in a couple of weeks? So hopefully they know more than what we do, but from what I've heard, it definitely won't be before June.
Kemp, you always have your fingers in pies and know people that none of us know and get the inside running. Not on your horses, you fuck. But you're definitely in rugby league.
You put more than $20 on. I know you did. You put on more than 28.
I went hard. I went so hard on that tip. Anyways, that's beyond it. I shouldn't have listened. I should have just taken. I didn't read it properly, Kempy. What have you heard, mate? What have you heard, good friend?
Yeah, I heard that you're the worst punter out. So probably if you're going to tell me you're going to spend that much money, then I'll definitely give you a better tip than the one I gave you on the weekend. But anyway, I think it's a can of worms if you're talking about coming home, and especially with our boys, and we saw what happened with the 3 players that left the bubble last year because they were missing home, and you set a seed there that we might be coming home in a couple of weeks, and everyone starts thinking about, should we going back to New Zealand, and we're going to see our family and all that. And it becomes a little bit hard to, especially if you run a couple of losses under your belt, to get them focused where they should be. So for me, I think the NRL runs a real risk of allowing our boys to come back to New Zealand. We saw it last week when Brisbane had those 3 cases and they raced the Brisbane side into Sydney. A little bit harder for us over here from New Zealand. If you've got 2 teams over here, it'd be really, I guess, a massive decision to say come home in even June. I think they'll be there for the rest of the year, and I think how they should prepare really is that they're going to be there for the rest of the year and just get on with it, because it's a tough one. It's a tough one because we all want to. I was thinking about this afternoon. The first game they come home, it'll be sold out. You won't get a ticket.
Kempy, what about this idea? Let me run this past you. If we play all our home games there this year, obviously it's going to depend on the other teams for next year, but we do get every game back here in New Zealand. We get all our home games at Mount Smart, but all the other teams' home games that come back here have to be played in one of the cities or one of the countries that isn't Mount Smart. So we're talking there could be a game in Taranaki, there could be a game in Tauranga, there could be a game Christchurch, all these places. Like there's you play 12 home games, 12 away games.
Cool. So
we're talking 12 games that'd be taken. Would that not spice up rugby league in New Zealand and sort of bring people back? Because I'm pretty sure you'd sell out all those other places as well.
I like how he dropped Taranaki in there too.
Yeah, oh, look, just in time too. Their stadium should be finished there. They've just got another 50 million out of the regional council down there. But look, I think it's a great idea to come back to New Zealand and play all those games, not just for the game, but I think the game itself and the people that want to play the game in New Zealand is really healthy. It's just that we don't have anything to aspire to. So if the NRL can say to the Warriors, you've got every home, you play at home, you don't travel next year, and the other part of that too is that the councils are trying to get events into their areas. The Warriors will make a bit of money out of it. You know what I mean? I'd say they'd sell most of their games to the bigger councils around the country, because there's no more events. There's WOMAD didn't happen down in Taranaki. You've got all these musical festivals being pumped around the country at the moment, because that's the only thing we can do in New Zealand is play music and play rugby. Because there's nothing else that's going on here. So. Yeah, the NRL, if they decide to give those home games, I think they got a real good chance. I think every Sydney club would get behind that purpose. You know what I mean? To support the Warriors for what they've done over the last 2 years. I think that'd be a great outcome.
And there's an NRL. So there's a NRL player in each NRL team who is from New Zealand. I'm pretty sure that there would be. Imagine them going back to their hometown and having that, like, sort of aligning those stars. Wouldn't that be good? Great fairy tale. Wouldn't you say, Mark?
That'd be great. Christchurch,
Wonderful.
Wellington, Taranaki. Be awesome.
A truly wonderful fairy tale, Blake, and always one to be thinking of that. Speaking of fairy tales, or could we call it a nightmare? A story that got put through from Aysh to me, actually. He shared it with me, thanks to NZ Warriors Faithful Instagram page, who are doing the Lord's work, might I say, breaking stories left, right, and centre, and putting a whole heap of stuff up there. So very much enjoying their content. And the story that took our interest was the idea that Paul Turner is looking like the man headed the other way to Brisbane, or the Broncos, in exchange for what would we call him? A very expensive new fullback that's headed our way. I mean, you were talking about aspiring players, people aspiring for more out of our local NRL or our local rugby league, Tony. When you see someone like Paul Turner being the person who would be shipped off, is that an inspiration for the next generation of player coming through?
Oh, hell no. You know what I mean? I think we touched on it last week. I said as soon as they signed that young kid and he hadn't got a start, that if I was his manager, I'd be shopping him around. So, they played this card. This ain't the card that he was dealt. He would dealt that card when they signed that young kid to fill Rogers' boots. But one thing it does show, and I spoke to two people this weekend about that, because we're talking about recruitment. We have developing players in this country across the board, and I don't know how many times I'm going to say it. You only have to look at our super rugby sides. You only have to look at our school system with the oval ball. But we tend to hire Australians. The CEOs tend to hire Australians in those seats who think they're above everyone else in this country, and they don't understand. There's a handful of things they don't understand. Well, the first thing they don't understand is they don't understand tika and kawa of the Māori population. They don't understand the Polynesian culture, especially around religion. They don't understand the school systems. They think they can walk into private schools who run these Super 8s and just take their best players, and the schools aren't going to do nothing about it. They don't understand the local content of rugby league and the relationships between whānau and the best players in the country. And the second thing is they're egotistical pricks. They stand up. I was in a room, and I was sitting in this room when Brian Smith said to the room, there was no one in New Zealand that could do his job. And I just took a look at him and I go, I don't know, I started to laugh. I thought, that's the problem with this club, is this club goes out and puts people in their recruitment positions that aren't developers. They're here for short periods, they're getting paid a decent whack, and they're not building a club. They're trying to win a premiership by buying these players to full spots. And until they start to develop, we're not going to get a premiership, I'm telling you, because we haven't got anyone filling the 7th spot. And there isn't a money tree out there with number 7s on it. We don't have fullbacks coming about our backside, and now we're going to send Paul Turner to the Broncos by the sounds of it. And then we ain't got a bunch of 5'8" or centres. You know what I mean? So forwards, we've got bountiful. But until we start to develop our own and keep them at the club, and the club becomes known as this is the club I want to stay and play for, a la Sydney City, Melbourne, mate, we're pushing shit uphill. I feel really sorry for Paul Turner's whānau. You know, he's from Northland. He's done his time. He should have been playing. I think he should have been playing last week. I think he should have got a shot. He should have got a shot, if not in the starting line, at least off the bench. Because I thought he did enough last year to play. But you know, that's what happens. You get a new coach. You know, sometimes a new coach says, "Oh, you know, I know what you're saying about this Paul Turner," but they tend to disagree with you. And if they disagree with you, he's the guy as head honcho. He get rid of you. You know, and that's what they look like they're doing with Paul Turner.
Lavina, thoughts?
I don't know. Did we have to swap him out for a player? Was that always part of the deal? Were we only ever going to get Reece if we swapped him for someone? I mean, I saw Turner obviously as being a development player. He's a Whangarei boy. And he had that stint, I think, with the Bunnies. But all along, I knew that they were going to groom him to play that fullback role for the Warriors in the long run. Obviously, they don't think he's ready now, but maybe this 18-year-old kid isn't ready either. He's a development player for the Broncos. So I know there's enough money in the kitty to be able to buy a player without having to swap one out. I heard maybe they were thinking about Perham. I wasn't too sure if it was going to be Hayes or even if it was going to be Turner, but I am sad to see him go if it is a straight swap for him, if that actually goes ahead, because development wise, I saw him with a future with the Warriors, because he was born and bred rugby league. He didn't come from rugby, that kid. He's eaten rugby league his whole life, and that's where the future is, I think, for us. I know that I don't know if you heard about this, Blake, but I did hear that Roger Tuivasa-Sheck had a coffee with Walsh over in Australia recently, and was really keen on him coming to the Warriors as soon as possible. Like literally, he said, "Come over, mate. You won't get in. You won't be able to play for the Broncos until round 10. Come over, be immersed in this squad now, and I'll teach you how to be me. I'll teach you how to be the next Roger Tuivasa-Sheck." So that's kind of a hard invitation not to take up, isn't it?
Totally. Did you hear the same, Aish? I mean, you and Roger close.
Roger might have had a coffee with him. I don't know if he would have said those exact things. I'll teach you how to be me.
Verbatim. Lavina knows.
Yeah.
Not there. Well, you're not there.
No, look, I share the same thoughts as everyone. I was lucky enough to actually play alongside this kid, and I know, man, he's got that flair that not many people have. And as I'm sad to see him go, I'm trying to look for positives, and the only positive I can get out of this is I know the Broncos haven't been the best team the last 2 years, but what they have is a lot of young juniors and a lot of players across the league that they have developed. So I'm hoping, and we've spoke about his connections back to New Zealand. Now, if he is to go, my hope is that, you know, he does want to come back one day, and I'm just hoping that
when he's worth $1 million.
Exactly. Hey, but the thing is that I'm hoping that they develop him into the player that we couldn't develop him into, because, like you said, Tony,
and that's the problem.
And that's the thing, Tony. Like you said, we don't have that systems yet, and the Broncos have been on top for so long, and now they've got this young squad who will be good in a couple of years, but they've all been through the development system. So I'm hoping that he goes over there, they develop him up into the player, he starts carving, he gets that first grade experience, and he comes home. That's my only positive I can take, because
they do, and that's what happens. I had a conversation with Isaiah's player manager, who's me best mate last year, and I said to him, you know, the Warriors should keep Isaiah and turn him into a middle player. He's got a motor on him. He'll be an 80-minute middle. That's the way the game's going. And I texted him on Saturday night, and I said, mate, the sooner they sack O'Sullivan, the better. Are you watching Isaiah play? And he's just, you know, they've gone and spent $800,000 on Whanua Blake, and they had the bloke sitting right under their nose, who's going to be playing a lot longer than Whanua Blake in the middle of the ruck. And I just and the thing that I'm saying is that they don't see it. They don't see that their own develops. They don't see those kids, and they do go to another club where everyone else sees it and says, "Oh, he's actually a middle player. I'm going to play for 80 minutes, and I've got him so cheap." You know what I mean? And then the Warriors go, "Oh yeah, we couldn't do that. Now come back to us. like they do, it's generally at the back end of their career, they're picking up large amount of money, and they're not all Roger Tuivasa sheiks, you know what I mean? In fact, that history of that type of player at our club has been around for a long time. So, you know, my point being, they will continue. We are a developing club for the other NRL clubs. So all of our best kids, if we don't bring them into the club and they leave, the best ones in our club, we don't give them a shot and they leave anyway.
Mm.
And the player managers are pissed off, mate. You know, they've done their time and they look at it and they see Sullivan bring his son in to play halfback, Paulie Turner. And don't tell me Paulie Turner isn't ready to play. Last year, he carved them up. You know what I mean? You give him another half a dozen games in first grade, the kid's a sensation. So don't tell me he's not, you know, I don't know what they're looking at, to be brutally honest.
Only one way to get experience, isn't there?
Yeah, it's, mate, the kid can play. Like, I don't know I seriously don't know what's going on at our club when we let our, it's not that we're letting our average kids go. We let Isaiah Papali'i should never have gone.
I agree.
Never have gone. Look at him. Like, look at him on the weekend. Look at him the last 2 weeks. He's been close to their best player.
And we're thinking that the same could be said about Paul Turner in the next year or so, right? We're thinking that this is probably one we should not let go. It's a horrible feeling. It's an absolutely horrible feeling. I've just had the reminder that we've got 10 minutes to go, so I wanted to quickly squeeze into this. New NRL rules driving a massive wedge between the haves and have-nots. This was something I threw Blake's way in a conversation. The average point difference between teams in round 4 was the most since round 16 in 2004, all the way back in 2004. 3 teams have a points differential of negative 100 after only 4 games. Kempy, you said it last week. These new rules, this is going to be the easiest round to ever pick. You picked them all like a dirty nose, and you already alluded to that headline. That was the headlines on NRL.com. These new rules have created a massive gap between the haves and have-nots. Is there any way of taming it? Can it be brought closer? I know that they've tried to tamper again with the idea of the 18th man. And changing that in and out, but how on earth do they bring it back so that the league is considered, you know, the toughest game in the world, because all of a sudden, you know, there's only a score in it?
Look, I think it gets worse before it gets better. I don't see it being changed overnight drastically enough to stop the injury toll. You know, the injuries are starting to eat into the average teams because they don't have the depth. The reason why we don't have the depth is we don't have the development underneath it. You know, I bet you they're kicking themselves at the 20s competition isn't playing currently at the moment. There was especially the way that Sam Walker showed up as an 18-year-old. You know what I mean? Imagine if we had all those 20s running around getting week in, week out footy. So, I seriously think it's going to get worse before it gets better. One thing we are going to see is we're going to see blowout scores, especially from the teams, I reckon, six and beyond. I reckon those bottom teams, generally after round 6, there's a trend starts to happen, and those bottom teams, to me already, it looks like they're going to be the bottom teams for the rest of the year. You know, the Cowboys, Manly, geez, they look terrible. You know, I know we've got Manly on Friday night, but I just think some of those teams that are down there at the moment, geez, they're pushing shit uphill.
Negative 122 points and point differential Manly. Is that who we're playing? Yes.
I actually wish we weren't playing them. I have a feeling that they've lost 4 games in a row and they're looking to fight back against a Warriors side that can't buy a prop at the moment.
Damn it, no.
Really and truly, I really wish we weren't playing Manly. That's the truth. But in terms of the scores being blown out, every single game we watched, hey, the Storm flogged the Broncos, Manly got flogged by the Panthers, the Bunnies kept the Dogs scoreless. I mean, I think it's all part of the new rules, and yeah, especially second half footy, it's just going to explode. And we all love a try. Let's be honest, we love rugby league tries. We honestly do. But the art of rugby league is not just in scoring tries either. You know what I mean? Sometimes stopping a try can be as exciting as scoring a try for mind as well. Oh. And I actually don't like watching the Bunnies beat the Bulldogs 38-0. It doesn't excite me at all. I just can't be bothered watching that. And there'll be more of it, like what Tony said.
In second gear. They did that in second gear. You know what I mean? They could have beaten it by 70. The other thing that people aren't talking about is the referees and the influence that they're having on the game with the rolling 6 of 6 and the calls. You know, I think they got to. That's the one rule I'd take out. Get rid of that. Get rid of that, and give a penalty. Slow the game. Just slow the game back down a bit, because if you give them a penalty, the game's going to slow down drastically.
So say that again. So what happens instead of
giving them a set of 6 a restart, just penalise them
for offside?
Just go back to penalties.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'll just say it round one.
What did you say, Ash? What did you claim to have said in round one?
I tried to say round one, but before when we had that chat, I said the game's too fast. It's
100%.
like I said, Parramatta can't. Before the comp, they said we can't breathe. Like it's becoming stupid. Like, and we spoke about injuries last year, and now they've gone faster. There's always we all spoke about the injuries, and it's just like and to me the way it's going to be is just going to be who has the most depth. So and we're looking at the Roosters, the Storm, the Panthers, the Raiders, and the Rabbits, and Parramatta. So there's about six teams. And those teams have depth in positions. Like their players that aren't playing could go and start first grade for other teams. That's how good their depth is. So for me, it's just like everyone said here, it's going to keep happening. And I think, there'll be 4 or 5 teams. The Warriors will be in that, fighting out for 7th and 8th. And then there'll be the teams that Tony said will be down the bottom for most of the year.
Getting thrashed and having 100 points put on them, and the fans going, well, this is not what we signed up for. Like, we knew we weren't going to be a top 8 side this year or a top 4 side, but we didn't expect to be slammed by that much. All right, we only have to wait till Friday, 8 p.m, for the Warriors to take on the Sea Eagles. Anyone else interested in who their teams are playing? You got a tough one this weekend, the Knights and the Titans, the newly improved Titans.
Kalen Pong is back. They've lost their halfback, mate. They're having a horror run in the halves. So the Manly Warriors game, mate. I reckon the Warriors can put 40 on them.
You reckon?
Wow.
Yeah, 100, mate. Honestly, they cannot tackle. They don't. You're watching the side play, and honestly, there's no desire to defend. Daly Cherry Evans he ain't wearing a tuxedo. Honestly, he's wearing diamonds and pearls, that bloke. He ain't going to lose one of them in a tackle. So I watch them, I go, I turn Manly off. I get frustrated, they're just not even in it.
I feel the same, Tony. Like they were running through Penrith up the middle, and then they'd shift the ball. And I'm like, what are you doing? You just ran through them for 3 tackles, and then you pass it wide and make no meters. It's just, I don't know what's going on there. But I am a bit like you, Lavina. I'm a bit worried because as a Warriors fan, we know these are the games we lose. And I'm not sure if Tommy Turbo's back. If he is, that's very scary. Very scary.
No doubt he'll be back. This is the type of game he'd come back for. Kemp, is this one of those bets I should definitely back? Warriors by 40 points? Or is this one of those ones
100%. Tommy. Turbo doesn't play. He's a difference. If he does play, I wouldn't be so robust about it. But if he doesn't play, it's 13 plus, mate, every day of the week.
What a shame that Fanua Blake isn't playing against his old side.
That would have been cool.
I would have liked that, but with I think Bunty Afoa is probably going to take a week off, isn't he, because of that shoulder charge on Sam Walker.
2 weeks, did I see? Or did I hear?
A couple. And we're still waiting on Tanoa Brown coming back as well. I just think that a bit of a broken engine room for the Warriors. And I have a feeling that Manly need to win at some stage. And unfortunately, it might be round 5. I don't want them to. They can't tackle. I agree. They were pathetic. Honestly, they cannot tackle. But I just have a feeling something's going to happen. And when Warriors don't like Friday night footy, whether or not they're travelling or not, they've not been the greatest fan because they've hardly ever had to play it. Because Channel 9 have never loved them, but I just have a really funny feeling about this one, Tony.
And Mark, just before we go, Bunty Afoa's massive loss, like Lavina said. He has been, I was with him in the showers. We were showering together. This is last year after his ACL when Nathan Brown got appointed, and he got the pass. Mate, you can go search for other clubs because you're not wanted here. So for him, that's a lesson to every kid, man. Put your ass down and work hard. And look, he's been the Warriors' best the first couple of weeks. Been outstanding, so that'd be a massive loss.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but no, I'm going to tell you again. Just go and tell another one of our best ones to go and find another club.
Yeah,
So get your recruitment manager and give him an uppercut. Why don't you get the recruitment manager and chuck him in the shower and give him an uppercut and say, mate, go and find yourself another club.
Like, did you have to? Did you have to? Did you have to get fired back up? And can I also say, completely unnecessary to say that you guys were in the shower when he said that to you. Like, that could have been a conversation anywhere. Like, it didn't.
Where we talk most.
Hey, good luck to the West Tigers taking on Cowboys 6:05 on the Sunday, and of course, Lavina's unbeaten the Eels taking on the Dragons 8:15 on
always
Sunday.
peak early. Always peak early. The Eels.
You never won a championship in the early rounds.
1 week at a time. I was happy. I nearly had a bet with Blake. I'm like, let's do this, Blake. Let's put a year on this sucker. But no, I was reserved. And the Tigers came back. I was very nervous watching that game. Very nervous indeed.
Good game of footy in the end. Hey, thank you guys so much. Enjoy your footy this weekend, and we'll catch you guys again next Tuesday night.